Welcome to the Dogger Pass podcast. I'm your host, Dan Tom. This is my co-host, Mike. We're here to break down UFC on ESPN 68, Blanchfield versus Barber, going down here, at least in my backyard. Mike's not too far off over in the West Coast. Backyard of Las Vegas, the Apex, of course. We are back, but we're going to be, here back with you, some breakdowns, give you some stats, some facts, all that stuff. We had a nice week off, so I don't know about you, Mike, but I'm ready to talk some fights, man. I'm champing at the bit over here.
Yeah, man. It's the weeks off are always good. Gives you time to reset and stuff like that. But when the card comes back, it doesn't even matter what kind of a card it is. It's like you feel like, oh my God, I got fights again. So, cards, okay. We tend to do good with the shorter cards, especially from like a DraftKings perspective and stuff like that. You got a smaller sample size to deal with, a lot less variance and stuff. But card top heavy, but good card. I'm looking forward to breaking it down.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for, the comments and what. I know there's a lot of like jokes and all the stuff that you'd expect us coming in, all fun and games. Some of them actually were really good, by the way. I actually got a genuine chuckle. I didn't get back to as many of you as I'd like to, so apologies on that. But there was some good feedback in there as far as like, Dan, what was your round robins and this and that? Can you give those to us at the end? I'm going to do that. Make sure I do a better job at giving you, if not a locked in round robin, what I'm targeting. Explaining those, recapping the picks, and me and Mike, we'll divulge it as we go. We're gonna try to keep everything as organic as possible. For better or worse, we're two pretty real dudes, and we're gonna be real with you guys. Okay, so one of the things we're gonna have again, shout out to Cody and Paul with the PRP. We're gonna have our own things, and it's called a Triple C. I know no one's ever said Triple C before in this space, right? But it's gonna be our consensus cash cow. No, not Henry Cejudo. Consensus cash cow. So we're gonna parlay. No rules. It could be a total. It could be a prop. It could be a money line. But we're gonna make a little underdog sandwich. We're basically gonna take two favorite lines, the minus number for the layman, and sandwich it and make a sandwich with a nice plus number in the middle. And hopefully it's a big plus number to make it juicy. Maybe we have two safer anchor legs, or maybe they're all three at pick 'em prices. We'll try to get a nice kind of sexy number out there for you, but that's what we're going to do here. Ain't that right, Mike?
Yeah. I think we should draw a little guideline on it, though, as far as like if the favorites shouldn't be over, like, say, minus 300. I mean, if you're we'll keep it in the tight fights. We're not going to give you minus 500s or anything like that. So we'll have two decently. They don't have to be. They could be two dogs. Right. But I'm saying, like, the law would be two favorites that are decently priced and then one dog. And like I said, it doesn't have to be the fighter. It could be a prop. It could be inside the distance. We'll figure it out as we go along. But let's hit the road.
Yeah, let's hit the road. We're going to try to keep this card much tighter and give it kind of the attention it deserves. And when we get to these Apex cards, we have to get a little bit degenerate. That being said, we do have a solid matchup to start the fight, a relevant matchup for the division. And it's not the normal middleweight main events that we usually get, like 75% of the time at that point. Of course, I'm talking about Erin Blanchfield, who comes in as your favorite minus 250. The comeback on Maycee Barber, your underdog, plus 205. The total set at 4.5 rounds, with the over 4.5 rounds minus 230, under 4.5 rounds plus 174. Mike, what's your feelings going into this one, man?
Yeah, so I think the line is a little skewed. I'm a big Erin Blanchfield person. I'm very well versed with her camp, Silver Fox, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Karl Pravic. When you go, she's from my hometown, and the one thing you got to notice about some of these camps is, like, not that they look to specialize in things, but they seem to have some kind of a connection with certain style fighters or certain people. Karl Pravic has a very good connection with female fighters. I mean, he's got Danielle Kelly in there. He's got Erin Blanchfield in there. He's got a lot of really high pedigree girls in his camp. So he really knows how to kind of dial in, really get through to them and make them understand, like, what kind of blueprint they're approaching from a grappling perspective. And when you look at this, like, the way I break down these fights, and I try to be as unbiased as possible, because obviously, like I said, she's from my hometown. I'm very well versed with her. I try to be unbiased as possible, but so I go through my check boxes. I go through my entire thing. A lot of people go through numbers and they go through, well, this many takedowns and that's all great and good, but there's matchups for a reason. Like, every matchup is different, just like no snowflake is the same. So you can't just dive into numbers. You got to dive into film. You got to dive into tendencies, and you got to dive into patterns. That's where you're really going to make your money, especially from a gambling standpoint. So when I look at Maycee Barber, first, I just see this girl who is, I like her. Don't get me wrong. I like her because she's got that Joe Frazier-esque style about her. She's going to move forward. She's really, really tough. She's not really great at any one thing, but you know when she gets in there, she is durable. She's going to spit blood. She's going to move forward, and she's going to try to lay hands on you. She's got big power. She's a brute. Her biggest ace in her pocket, I hate to say it, is her ability to bully girls in the cage. That is her biggest, to me, her biggest ace. Now, a lot of the girls that she's fought, she was able to bully. She was able to push a pace on them. They were sometimes more of a counter striker, or maybe a little bit more of a technician, so she was able to get her way. The one hole I did see in her game, which is a pattern, is her takedown defense really is not that good. She's been taken down, in her last 5 fights, De La Rosa, Jessica Ai, Lee, Hebas, Chukagian. And the one thing that you notice, like in the way that she's getting taken down a lot of times by very high percentage, low percentage takedowns. Like Hebas was able to take her down 2 times with 2 head and arm throws. Like that's not supposed to happen. That's like one thing I had a gripe with Michelle Waterson. She used to do these head and arm throws. I'm like, this is a 50-50 chance you're taking here because you can end up on the bottom. And so when you look at that's her ace and you look at that's her hole, now you go to the Erin Blanchfield side and you say, okay, what is her hole? Well, we all know her striking kind of is her hole. Very rarely do you get a really high pedigree grappler that's a really good high pedigree striker. You're seeing it more and more now, but usually that's kind of the shtick. Like you have a really good grappler that kind of lacks in striking. So that's what you're looking at with her, but she still throws a high clip. She still throws a very high clip. She's still throwing in the 100s. And when you're fighting a fighter that maybe not be all that technical, she's a little awkward. She's a little goofy footed. Sometimes that throws people off. Now, the ace obviously is grappling, her grappling. We know she's got very good grappling, but she needs to work on her wrestling a little bit. But when you combine it all together and you make this one cocktail, you got a girl in Erin Blanchfield who also is very tough. And that's where I think Barber's going to have problems. She's so used to being the tough one in there that now she's facing a girl who has chops, who can expose her holes. And maybe she doesn't hit with that much power. Maybe she doesn't have the striking capabilities that Barber has. But if it goes to the ground, she's going to own the ground. And in order for Barber to get to her, Barber's got to get in on her. And if she gets in on her, her takedown defense is not all that good. So she's going to be able to ground this fight. So I think the toughness of Blanchfield is going to win this fight. She's going to be able to match her toughness along with a better skilled, a basket. That's what wins her a fight. And I think the FILHO fight showed everybody, the Manon fight showed everyone how tough she really is. Yeah, she may lack a little bit in technique, but she's super, super tough. So I'm going Blanchfield here. I think she toughs one out. I'm going to say decision, but I would not be shocked if somewhere mid through the fight she locks something up and subs her.
Yeah, my sick head started going another direction. We started talking about where the holes are, but I love that Joe Frazier comparison. That was really good for Barber, especially, the way she, of course, much more sloppier and much more open to counters, but the way she kind of will wade in there with her hooks, so to speak. I also love that. I was hoping, Mike, we didn't rehearse nothing before the show, folks. I was hoping you'd come in with some of the New Jersey background, and you're like me, we try not to be annoying with it, folks, and we're good about stating our biases. We're not trying to, overly rah-rah here. And I really appreciate that actual information you gave on the coaches, because I did notice that it seems she does seem to have Erin Blanchfield have a good fighter coach connection. I think she works with the places at MK or NK Muay Thai. And even though she's not known for her striking, like you could tell she's being taught some good things there. She's getting much more comfortable with that game, and not to get, overly obvious here with another New Jersey comparison. But let's bring more New Jersey into the house. And she really reminds me of an early mid-stage Frankie Edgar, where it was kind of just like a wind-up doll, and Frankie would do a shuffle and he'd come in, run his combos, get the takedown, grounded pound, and he had his whole process. And even though he could, put guys away, that amazing fight against Gray Maynard to cap off their trilogy, he wasn't necessarily known for his punching power. You could get it done more on the ground, more than he was given credit for. Fought a lot of good guys. But I see Blanchfield the same way, where even if she can't get to her finishing points, win or lose, she's going to keep coming. And even when she did take hard shots, very tough to your point. So I'm leaning toward Blanchfield too. Part of me wants to say I'm surprised that it's this wide, but given that we get Ronda Rousey odds, so to speak, so much in MMA, a minus 250 favorite seems rather moderate. I do like that. I do feel like the over is tricky. I do feel like that's more of a trap, even though it's like the same line and Blanchfield does win by decision. majority of the time. I do feel like that over is trappy because Barber is a very live finishing threat, even though Blanchfield seems to be really tough and weather the storm. I agree. And Blanchfield, let's be honest, Barber has shown, she's shown to get like better get ups, but man, she still shows to be really suspect once you can get her on her back. Her underhook, she's finally starting to like learn how to use them. But against Blanchfield, who's got the front headlock, the guillotine threats, like she could crash that over on you too. So if you're on the fence and you're like, maybe I'll just go over in a parlay, which is totally something I do, and I got burned last week doing, folks, or the week before, I should say. Perhaps maybe that's why I'm speaking of caution, but I would caution that over nonetheless. Any last thoughts on that? I know we're both in the Blanchfield. I don't know how heavy we're rushing to the betting window, but any more thoughts on this, Mike?
Yeah, just the only thing I'll say with this, I think a lot of people they're looking at, and I do believe it is a little bit of a high line, because the fact of the matter is, if she can't get those takedowns, then she could be in a world of trouble. It can be a very long fight for her. But I think people are looking into it a little bit too much when they look at the Manning fight. You got to understand, Manning's got tremendous takedown defense. She fights very long. She's a really articulate striker. There's a big difference between being someone who's just going to crash the pocket to being an articulate striker. And she's a very articulate striker with a lot of power. She's got phenomenal takedown defense. So there wasn't much that Erin could really do with her. Barber's going to open up a lot of windows. Barber's reckless. She's a bull in the china shop. She's going to crash forward. There's going to be opportunities for her to get, body lock takedowns and inside trips. There's going to be even maybe jump Gilly. Like Erin Blanchfield is not afraid to do those things. So don't look into the Manning fight too much and say, well, look how she fared with Manning. What if she can't do that to Barber? It's two completely different animals.
Absolutely. And last thing I'll say is Barber has been out for a year, and she did show striking improvement. I'll have it in the breakdown, the actual coach's name, to give him credit, but she's been working with a Muay Thai coach, and now she's actually finally like using feints, jabs, and a check hook, which she's shown on occasion. That's what Manning really used in that fight. So, I'll say leave some room to be surprised on the Barber side. And I'll finish by giving you guys some stats. Again, we're going to give the attention maybe that the prelims deserve, but I got Apex stats and as well as Southpaw stats where they apply. Barber, of course, is a switch stance fighter. She does switch stance, but she primarily fights Southpaw, right? Blanchfield, for what it's worth, 4-1 against UFC level Southpaws. Of course, that one loss was to Manon Fiorot, who we just referenced. And I got Apex stats for you guys because, Mike was saying there's opportunities there, and I'm agreeing with him. And it's not just me blindly nodding my head to my co-host here, folks. The reason why he's saying that, I'm assuming, and the reason why I'm agreeing with him saying that is because it's going to be in the smaller octagon, right? We got about roughly, 25 to 40% within that realm of less real estate. That encourages more action. More specifically, it encourages more grappling action. And again, there's no hard and fast rules in life, much less a volatile game like MMA. But if you feel like at odds breaking down these fights in the Apex, a lot of times that what can push me to one side is, okay, who's the superior wrestler and submission grappler? Because that is the kind of action that the Apex kind of encourages, right? So for those stats, Blanchfield, undefeated 3-0 in the Apex. Barber, 2-1 loss coming to former champion Alexa Grasso, of course. So I just wanted to end with that before I push on.
Love it.
All right. Next fight, co-main event. Mixed feelings on this fight, but we'll get to that. MATEUSZ GAMROT is your favorite, -160. The comeback on LEDOVIT KLEIN, +135 is your underdog. The total for this one, 3-round fight. So it's set at 2.5 rounds with the over -300 and the under +222. Ooh. Mike, any of these numbers from the obviously the money line, but even the totals there, anything jumping out to you?
I mean, the over's kind of juiced. I think it's a fair line, believe it or not, in GAMROT. I do. I think this is a really good fight. I love this fight. For the reasons it's just such a great matchup. LEDOVIT KLEIN is really coming into his own now. But this is another situation where I always say, guys, like, don't look at the numbers so much. Don't look at the resume so much. You got to look at the matchup in front of you. One of the biggest rules I can tell you guys that have allowed me to be like somewhat successful in choosing fights and blueprinting fights, and even for people that I've been involved in camps with, is you never go past about 3 fights. After 3 fights, you kind of don't even, not that you ignore them, because if the patterns are still there, the patterns are still there, but so much happens fight from fight fight with adjustments and changes of camp and maturity levels and lessons learned, or some people's chin just starts to go. Like, so much happens when people go back to 2020, 2019, 2018. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, they're not even the same people anymore. So try to keep yourself into a pigeonhole of 3 to 5 fights and keep it at that. That's where you draw the end mark. After that, nothing else matters. So when you look at LEDOVIT Klein and you look at, wow, this guy's on a 4-fight win streak and he's been, really, really impressive. Roosevelt Roberts, Thiago Moises, AJ Cunningham, Bohemondez, which to me is probably the most impressive one out of the 4. He looks fantastic. The guy's a unit. The guy's got a lot of power. He's got a nasty head kick. He switches things up really, really well. And the people are saying, well, if he keeps us on the feet, he's going to, piece up GAMROT. And you know what? Chances are probably that's probably what would happen. But he's got to keep it on the feet. Like, that's the whole thing. He's got to keep it on the feet. And a great point that Dan Tom just made before is this is the smaller cage. And if GAMROT is a smart, intelligent fighter, which is another thing I really look for in fighters, I look for their intelligence. I watch their interviews. I want to see how they speak, because if they know how to speak and they're intelligent and they can, communicate, you're going to be able to communicate them to draw up the right blueprint, which they're going to follow, which gives them good cage IQ. Very important to me. So GAMROT seems like a guy who does have a very good, he understands what got him here. He understands he's going to be spamming takedown after takedown after takedown after takedown. He knows, like, he's not going to have a dick measuring contest with LEDOVIT Klein for 15 minutes. So he kind of knows, I'm in a smaller cage. My best path to victory here is to spam takedowns. And yes, he is supporting a 90% takedown defense, but the fact of the matter is people were not spamming takedowns on him like GAMROT is, and they weren't GAMROT. So I think this has a potential, be honest with you, to be a good fight while it's in certain spots, but also be a very boring fight of just control and just spamming takedowns. And sure, he's going to fail. He's not going to get every takedown he hits, but he's going to spam and spam and spam and spam for 15 minutes. And I think GAMROT ends up winning the decision here.
Yeah, absolutely. And GAMROT, I got to imagine, I don't get too much fantasy access out here, but I know we've got a lot of, fantasy players and whatnot that watch the show. I'm curious. I was kind of surprised, and I like seeing Klein get respect in a bigger, he does deserve a bigger fight, but I don't, this could be a bad step. This could end up being one of the worst stylistic fights for him in the division. I'm not saying it is. We got to see the fight play out, but
GAMROT's a bad match. That style is a bad matchup for anybody in a small cage.
I agree. Absolutely. I agree. And unlike the previous fight with the small cage dynamic, how it plays in perhaps into fantasy is win or lose is GAMROT's going to be racking takedowns for you. And I know those can score high, and I'm not sure if the price tag is going to reflect the betting line. I know it doesn't always, and obviously you really can't do a 1-for-1. It doesn't really necessarily match up 1-for-1, but if they're giving you a discounted price tag, which I would argue pre-flop, and then it could definitely look like that post-flop, that you're getting a discounted price on GAMROT right now. He opened a little tighter, which is even more surprising. And I'm seeing people I respect come in on Klein. Klein is a talented southpaw. By the way, GAMROT is 4-1-1 against UFC level lefties for the southpaw stats. Although, let's be honest, it probably should be 3-2-1 if you adjudicate that Jalen Turner fight correctly, which I thought Turner edged it out on damage personally. Now in the small cage, Klein is 1-2. Again, surprise. Those two came earlier in his career, granted, but again, surprise, surprise, a striker maybe struggling in the smaller cage, forced to face those problems against certain fighters in that small cage, right? Whereas GAMROT is 5-0 in the Apex. However, let's be honest, he probably should be 4-1 because that 5-0 includes one Arman Sarukian headliner for 5 rounds, which was really one of the most, questionable, not just results, but even scorecards when you look at what rounds were given to which fighter there. A whole mess of things, right? But that's another reason why I do like GAMROT too, is because even when he loses, he still wins. I mean, win or lose, you look at fights, where he's getting dropped, which he gets dropped a lot, right? And maybe that's what people are looking like. He's an older fighter. Klein's on his way up. Klein looks like, he's been drinking from the fountain of youth over there. Looks like his piss could, burn through titanium. You know what I'm saying? But you might know something about that, Mike. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, so I get the love on Klein, right? But at the same time, GAMROT, he can get dropped in rounds, and he's so auto-programmed to go for takedowns. It almost tricks the judges where it's like, was that a slip? Was that especially if they got a bad angle in the octagon? And he almost makes you forget about it, so to speak. So I like GAMROT here. I almost pulled the trigger at minus 160, but I'm greedy and I'm also kind of staunch to my rules.
I wouldn't do that. You can get a
So
better
yeah, I
line.
would
You can get a better line. How
exactly.
if you
Yeah.
go if you got by decision, you're getting them at minus 120.
Well, you could do that and then do same game parlay to get toward even money. But
Right.
here's the thing: my personal playable chalk is minus 150 or under, so I would want a better line on the money line A before I would play
Okay.
GAMROT. So I haven't played them. And B, the reason why I wouldn't same game parlay, I don't know how much you're not that I wouldn't, but I don't know how much you're going to shed off your GAMROT by decision with the same game parlay. They're probably going to end up around close. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks. However, the reason why the total caught my eye is because that's a big number for a total. I mean, the small cage does encourage action. That could be a knockout for GAMROT. We've seen GAMROT have trouble with front kicks to the body, and that is one of LEDOVIT Klein's main targets.
No,
And again,
100%.
this could be another thing where again, LEDOVIT Klein's got really good first layer defense, just like Maycee Barber. But when they get to their back, they look like fish out of waters, man. And that, and as well as you look at the way Nate Landwehr got his finish, it looks like, and I hate when people say, "Oh, he quit," because I love the CHIASSON mindset where it's like, well, technically everyone that's an option for everybody, whether we want to admit it or not. I don't like to, focus on it as harshly as the fans do. And if you look at it, it looks like one of those things where like, oh, Klein quit. However, if my late great coach, Robert Wallace would say, picking up the pack and putting it down, and as a guy who understands exercise science and physiology, I know this will track with you, Mike, but when you exert certain activity, you have to have your time to recoup. Now, everybody's different, right? But you can almost feel it when you're going with somebody, especially if you're grappling. They're straining, they're bridging, they're doing explosive movement, and you're kind of riding it out, and you feel that, and that's them putting down the pack. Now, conversely, if you pick up the pack once your opponent puts it down, you kind of tortoise in the hair that MFer, and you actually can make incredible gains on somebody because they're too tired. You're catching them in their refractory period, so to speak, and you actually make more gains than on paper you might would have. And GAMROT is that kind of guy where he is not a single explosive guy offensively or defensively like Klein is. He keeps going, he keeps transitioning. So I like GAMROT in the spot, even though I'm a fan of Klein's style, southpaw striker. But I'm a fan of GAMROT in this spot. And don't be surprised if I pull the trigger, or even though I hate doing parlays, I don't recommend them. But I'm also a degenerate who likes to have fun. Don't be surprised if you see him in some kind of two-legger, or even in that under at plus 222. That's a high enough number to make it into a 4 or 5 leg round robin the way I play them if I'm desperate for legs, especially if I'm exposed on GAMROT, because I think GAMROT can get a sub if he gets him down. And, God forbid I'm wrong here, then the under probably is cashing because that means Klein probably knocked him out.
Agreed. I would say you're going to know how this fight goes by the first round. By the first round, you're going to know exactly how this fight's going to go.
Absolutely. So if you do want to get something in, get it in pre-flop, because I don't think you're going to get live betting opportunities much on either side to that point.
Agreed.
Next fight, we got Billy Ray Goff minus 340, RAMIZ BRAHIMAJ plus 135. The over is set at 1.5 rounds.
That's LEDOVIT Klein.
That over. What's that?
That's LEDOVIT Klein's picture. Look.
I'm not on that. Yeah, that is. Hey, that is. Yeah. To be fair, to be fair, there was a shuffling. Billy Ray Goff was actually set to face a Korean fighter who dropped.
No, I know.
Out.
Yeah, I know.
And then RAMIZ BRAHIMAJ was actually set to face Oban Elliott, who I believe it was visa issues. So the UFC was able to put this one together. And yeah, you got the under 1.5 rounds at plus 265. Another big number, but it's a 1.5. Even under lovers hate 1.5 unders. Do you have any opinion on any of these numbers, or what's your opinion on the fight itself?
Nah, I'm going to keep this one kind of short, if I'm being honest. I see this, like I said, I just look at the patterns of both of these guys. And one thing about Billy Ray Goff is he's a kamikaze. This guy's going to come in, he's going to throw heavy hands. He's willing to eat 3 shots to land one. Pretty durable, pretty durable. He's got a pretty good gas tank, but he's very reckless. Like, he absolutely can be beat. He absolutely can be caught. But on the flip side, when I look at BRAHIMAJ, I'm looking at a guy who's really first rounder bust. Like, he's going to come in, he's going to try to sub you, he's going to try to put it on you. And then after that, it's like the lactic acid builds up, the ATP level goes up, and he just doesn't have the ability, just genetically. It's probably his genetic code. Doesn't have the ability to really recover. And I think that's where, Billy Ray Goff is going to just come in and swarm him. And to be honest with you, I'm going to call a round here. I'm going to say Billy Ray Goff by second round knockout.
I like that. I like that prediction a lot. I like the kamikaze comparison. He definitely is. He's a really fun guy. You know, I do the grading the winners, things where I get to break down and give a grade to the fighters after the contender series, and I do matchmaking. Now, when I do fantasy matchmaking, Billy Ray Goff's a guy I'm constantly using because he's like raw and low level enough. You compare him with contender series guys, and he's just all action. Like he's fun, you know? So when I'm like, oh, who'd be a good action fighter for another action fighter? Or who would be a good action fighter to bring up, you know, a boring fighter, make him better? I'm like, oh, Billy Ray Goff. But man, minus 340, like I like this matchup better for him than his original one. I like him as a favorite. I was hoping maybe, you know, maybe he'd be out of like straight play range, but maybe like he'd be a solid parlay piece. But now he's even, you know, and obviously he's in a parlay piece range with his price. But for my personal proclivities, who hates parlays, he's getting even too high for me because of what you said. He hasn't shown to be reliable. And I'm a big fan of his style, but he's such a wild man.
Yeah, no, when you're that wild, you leave too many windows open. And even if you fight a guy who's not even half as good as you leave a window open and somebody jumps through and you lose. Sometimes the better fighter doesn't always win.
Right. And Brahimaj's got the, you know, grappling advantage. This is the small cage. However, Brahimaj's got a losing record in the Apex, 2-3. Goff, you know, 0-0, 1-0 if you count his contender series fights for those stats to get those to you guys and out of the way. But yeah, Brahimaj's wrestling, even with working with Bilal, even, you know, I know he was coming back from a tough comeback fight against Garimbo, but it's kind of looked inconsistent even before that, you know. And Goff, he actually comes from a wrestling background. They're both purple belts in BJJ. But even Goff's wrestling, you know, not as good as maybe you might expect for his athleticism and his explosiveness and some of the applications that he goes for. It doesn't quite match up. I just kind of chalk it up to rawness. But I like Goff. I think he gets a finish. I like that call, Mike, or round 2. You know, I'm sure Goff will probably be high owned for fantasy players, but he's gonna go out there and give you that action. I'm excited to see more of him. He's my pick. But I don't see a play I like, because I imagine his finished propositions are pretty fortified on the betting lines as well.
Yeah. Actually, while you're loading up the next one, I'm actually Billy Ray Goff is that's, I mean, it is playable. It's plus 125. Billy Ray Goff by KO. That's playable. You know, it's definitely. I mean, it's nothing that you're super excited about, but if you go to round props now, you're looking at Billy Ray Goff plus 450 in round number 2. That's you know, you want to throw a little nut sack on the table, you know, for a little sprinkle, and you fucking take it, you know. But it's not horrible. Yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot worse. You know what I mean? I've seen a lot worse.
Yeah, I would. If I'm desperate for legs, you know, if it's a tight conservative, you know, 4-leg round robin, and I want, you know, you want 2 out of the 4 legs to hit, right? Out of whether it's a 4-leg round robin or
you're talking round robin. I'm talking about it just a straight wager.
No, yeah, I know what you're talking. I'm just saying, like, for me, how I would play it, because I wouldn't want to put too much exposure on this fight in general, regardless of what you like, right? So for me, like, you know, when the number's under 2-1, but it's still a plus money number, that's when I look for maybe if I'm doing a 4-leg round robin. Because if you do a 5-leg, you really need to play these big numbers to make it worth it. It's a crapshoot, folks, but you ideally just want to hit 2 legs for payoff. Like, for example, last week I hit Gomez round 2, right? And I missed some other things like the Gordon round props, the Arosa round props, but I had Bellato round 2, right? And that fight didn't happen. It was a push, and it does combos of 2-teamers. So 5-leg would be 10 2-teamers. By the way, some folks wanted me to explain this. That's why I'm going through this, folks. And you can do your own number, but personally, I like number 17.17, and that equals to 1.7 unit total exposure. If you did a 5-leg round robin on a card, for example, you put 5 of your favorite props where you're like, these are long shots. I don't know if I want to put like real serious money, like a unit a piece on these. How about we save money? And, you know, just for a little over a unit, we have exposure on like 5 different fun things that can combo up and potentially pay out. And even if we got 1 leg, like the Gomez round 2 last week in Bellato, which was a push, I didn't make my whole 1.7 unit back, but I got 1.2 units back from that, Mike. Surprised me. I got more than I thought, granted. But that's kind of how the round robins tend to work. So if it was a 4-leg, maybe I look at the Goff KO, and then it's a little juicier. You said round 2. I'm a round 2 guy. There's always like a round 2 leg in my round robins, Mike. So maybe if I'm desperate for a leg, maybe I throw that in there. So just a little explainer for the audience.
There's a reason why you demand the best information, just like there's a reason why Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. For over 35 years, Morgan & Morgan has been fighting for the people, just like you and I. They have over 100 offices and more than 1,000 lawyers nationwide. When you hire the wrong law firm, you may be beat before you start. All law firms are not the same. If you're ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/doggerpass or dial #law, #529 from your cell phone. That's FOR thepeople.com/doggerpass or #law, #529 from your cell. This is a paid advertisement.
All right, next fight, we got Dustin Jacoby, -190 versus Bruno Lopez, +165. Total is set for 2.5 rounds, with the over 2.5 rounds, -105, under 2.5 rounds, expecting a little bit of violence, -125. Mike, what do you got on this?
Yeah, I'm going to keep this one short too. It's just, to me, like, there's certain fights, guys, that I'm going to be honest with you. Like, you can listen to outlets and read articles and you could do all this great stuff and go through records and stuff, but sometimes don't make it more difficult than it really is. Like, you could simplify things. You don't have to sound super smart and you got all these details. Like, make it simple for yourself. Go through your own, trajectory, as far as you create a pattern for yourself of green boxes and red boxes to check off. And sometimes it's just there. Sometimes it's very minimally said, and very minimally said is Bruno Lopez is a guy who, yes, does he have some talent? Yes. Does he have a couple paths here? Yes. Are they high? Are they high percentage? No. Chances are Bruno Lopez is going to get baited into the wrong kind of fight, because that's tends to what he does. This is a guy who came out of Contender Series. He gets knocked out Ribeiro. He comes back. He gets another chance. He wins. Dana White puts him into the UFC. He wins. Good for him. Now he's having a little bit of success. But when you're going against a guy like Dustin Jacoby, who, listen, he's been up and down. I have no trust in him. It's not like sitting here saying this is a lock for anybody. But the fact of the matter is, he is a very high pedigree, crisp, technical striker. Everything comes down the center line. Everything has a rhyme and reason behind it. He ties his punches together very, very well. There's a calculation behind, almost like playing pool. When he throws a punch, he's setting up his next shot. Bruno Lopez is just a guy who comes in. He's got some skill, and he's going to fight, and he's going to throw shit against the wall to see if it sticks. But when you're fighting a guy like Dustin Jacoby, sometimes that's not the greatest game plan. So just to simplify it, I just see him being a little bit more technical. I see him stinging Lopez on his mistakes. And I eventually think I'd like to see a Dustin Jacoby knockout in this spot.
I like that. I like that a lot. Dustin Jacoby is one of the guys where, I'm sure you have this, Mike, and we all have plenty of fighters that we're wrong on more often than not if we did the records. But some fighters, haunt us, right? And some fighters were like, you know what, whether I'm picking them or I'm picking against them, I got like a close to 90% hit rate, right? And at least hopefully we've got a decent amount of those fighters. And Justin Jacoby is one of those for me, right? Even the one thing, maybe to hedge Justin Jacoby bet, maybe pick round 1 KO for the opponent. I think I did that with Kennedy and Nchukwu. I think I technically picked Jacoby, but I'm a big Jacoby better. I'm staying away from this one, folks. If anything, plus 1,800 for round 1. I think it was Kennedy and Nchukwu knockout. I'm like, how about that? That being said, Jacoby, he can also get that early knockout. He can get it in round 3. He can dog out a decision, even when he's rocked like he was against Iwan Kutalaba, who has shown more of a wrestling and going back to that wrestling and submission game, right? He even showed then like he was really tough to take down. And of course, that was one of his fights in the small cage, where Jacoby in that octagon, by the way, folks, 3-1-1. That draw, of course, coming to Cute Laba. The loss, a controversial one. I actually was sympathetic to the scorecard. Ben Cartledge and another judge gave to Khalil Roundtree, but and that was Khalil Roundtree, title challenger for what it's worth, but that was the loss column. Bruno Lopez 1-0 in that small cage, could be 2-0 if you want to consider the Dana White Contender Series fight, but in that Dana White Contender Series fight, and we saw it again in his following fight, which again was a fight I recommended for my matchmaking column against Gaji Asulov. He really, he wasn't, the gas tank really wasn't pressed. And even though he even gets the finish in the Dana White Contender Series fight with a body shot, which I'm a big fan of, Mike, you're a boxing fan, so I know you're a big fan of the body shots too. That being said, it really was a lackluster performance, really low volume, and seems really opportunistic with his. Even though he puts a lot in his strikes, but with his strikes or submissions, a lot of it's first round or bust. So yeah, I like JACOBY here. JACOBY is the one parlay piece I feel good about. I'm just teetering on like, do I pair him with Blanchfield for small plus money, which obviously Blanchfield is the one I feel less confident there, right? Or do I wait for something else perhaps down in the card that we're going to talk about? So I'll be looking to have some action on JACOBY, but I can't tell you what it is at this point.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. You got your trust in your JACOBY, kid.
I know. It's weird. I got, I'm just not impressed with this one. And this matchup really doesn't make sense to me.
Me neither. To me, it's just like it's cut and dry unless he slips on a banana peel to me.
Hey, you know what? That being said, I said that about another aging fighter who came from that camp, Julian Marquez, and out came Zachary Reese, who's now minus 250 over DUSKO Todorovic plus 200. I almost thought, I was like, oh, am I going to have to cover for Jared? Did he switch up the odds here? Even though I already knew what the odds were. Just again, that's how surprising these odds are to me. To tip my hand, of course, the over is 1.5 rounds, total 1.5 rounds, over at plus 153. They are predicting violence with an under 1.5 rounds at minus 200. What do you got for this one, Mike?
Man, I'll tell you one thing. This is a guy that I could never corner. Like if I had to corner this guy, I would put my fucking foot through his throat because he's got no emotions, bro. DUSKO has zero emotion. You don't know if he's happy. You don't know if he's sad. You don't know if he's taking his shit. You don't know, like, nothing. Like I can't be around people like that, especially in the gym. Like I've been in and out of a lot of gyms in my lifetime, and there's certain guys I look at and I'm like, I just don't think I can get through to him. And if I do, I don't know if I'll know. DUSKO's that guy. He's just really like stoic and nothing. Like if his dog dies, he's probably got the same face on. So, but the guy is, I've always had problems watching him fight because he did come into the UFC with some steam behind him. I mean, I don't know if you remember, of course you remember, but when he came into the UFC, he had some steam. Like people were kind of looking at this kid like, maybe that's why he had a mystique about him. But as time went on, it was like coming from a striking background. I used to like yell at my TV, like, take your head off the center line. Like, what the hell are you doing? And he would just go in there and he would fight and he would keep his chin on the center line. And he gets hit more and keeps his head on the center line more when he's on the back foot counter striking. When he's moving forward, he's a little bit better. But when he's on his back foot, it's like dart practice. I mean, I would literally scream at the TV. And I'm like, well, why the hell do they have him kicking off this main card? And the reason why is because he's either knockout or bust. Like he's going to knock you out or you're going to knock him out. Zach Reese is a big guy and he's a finisher. So here we go. You got a fight that most likely, guys, is probably going to end inside the distance. So while I was leaning on Zach Reese, and I'm not a fan of Zach Reese. I don't think Zach Reese is all that good. I think he's a big body. I think he's got decent grappling. I think he's got big power, but I think he's extremely beatable by minimal level competition. I'm talking about he's very beatable from mediocrity in the UFC. The one thing I saw with DUSKO in his interview that kind of made me say, wow, he actually made a point to bring this up. And they said, what do you need to do? Because he changed camps. What do you need to do in order to win this fight? And he point blank said it. I need to take my head off the center line. That right there to me got me nervous. And I was like, well, he's not saying he needs to move more. He's not saying he needs to utilize more footwork or he needs to be patient or he needs to believe. He literally point blank came out and said it twice. I need to take my head off the center line. So what I've seen in the past 4 fights with this guy's finally seeing now, maybe it's his camp that's telling him, look, this is ridiculous. Look what you're doing off the counter. Like you're not taking your head off the center line. So if he does that, that is 50% of his failure. I mean, that's 50% of his failure right there is the way he doesn't move his head off the center line. So I got to be honest with you, man. I'm leaning Zach Reese just because you just need to blow on that chin at Todorovic and he's going down. But new camp, new mindset, understanding, that's the biggest thing, guys. Like you can tell somebody that they have an issue, but in order to get over it, you need to accept it and understand it and embrace it and say, yeah, this is how I'm going to fix it. He understands that, like, this is his problem. Like, he just doesn't move his head. He stays on the center line. He doesn't put landmines out, create traps. I'm really curious now about this fight after that interview. So, like, I went from being like, Zachary Reese is going to fucking highlight this kid to now I'm interested. So I got to be honest with you. This is an interesting fight to me at this point now, because I'm curious to see how DUSKO is with this new camp. I'm going to lean Zach Reese, but I'll tell you one thing, like I'm very curious to see how Todorovic comes out here.
So I might be very semi-reluctantly leaning toward your direction, but I love what you're saying, because I think we would probably watch the same interview, because I noticed that too, and that was a big pickup for me, that he changed camp, saying that his camp abandoned him like midway through the camp or on his travel or some crap. Like, crazy. We've heard of crazy stories like this before, and I guess that happened, you know, to Todorovic. He's injured in the fight before. He's got some layoffs in there. So it's definitely plenty of reason for this rough stretch that he's on. But great point. I don't want to repeat it, because you said it so perfectly with, you know, if he can, you know, easier said than done, but if he can take his head out line off center, that's like 50% of his problems, because it's his defense. And even though his process also wasn't that great, ultimately he's one of his strengths that he's known for is ground and pound and working from top position. Excuse me. He is a jiu-jitsu black belt as well, so he knows what to do on the ground, and that's where, you know, his biggest on paper advantage is going to be. And again, he's in the small cage, right? And Zach Reese was a guy I was rough on, because I was like, even, you know, with Marquez being on his skid, and even with the way the fight turned out, definitely makes this sound even sillier. But I was like, man, he has no business, you know, fighting Julian Marquez. What's going on here? And you know, we got to be aware of our biases, right? And his style is like very like a style that I find myself kind of like biased against sometimes. You know, the guys that are almost like no process at all, and like all opportunism and flash. And it gets like the gen pop and the betters really excited, but then like the technical hipster nerds like me are like, I don't know, he's not proven, you know. So, you know, I definitely get those vibes. But speaking of camps, you know, he does, you know, show some improvements. Now, I wasn't going to pick him against a guy like Bakoyev, who I've been proven right against, proven right for since before he got to the UFC, putting him on my prospect list. So I don't know how much you want to count that against Zach Reese, but he has shown some improvements. He went and trained at a camp I'm familiar with, Bangtao Muay Thai, and there he met an extreme couture guy, Chris Curtis, and now came to work for this camp in my backyard, my main camp here, Extreme Couture. So I've got a stated bias here, even though I'm like biased against the guy's style. That being said, you know, he's been working with really good people. Todorovic is 0-1 against UFC level southpaws. That loss comes to Puna Soriano, who is an Extreme Couture fighter and was in this camp and one of many resources, including Coach Eric Nixick for Zach Reese, as well as guys like Sean Strickland and whatnot. And so I'm really curious, you know, even if I do end up picking Todorovic, and I do feel like this is dog or pass from a betting perspective, absolutely, regardless of what side me or Mike end up on this madhouse of a fight. I am hoping that we both see more, and for Reese's sake, I genuinely wish well for the guy. I hope to see improvements here. However, this feels like a dog or pass spot, to where like whether I pick Todorovic or not, if you're going to give me 2-1, again, if I'm struggling to put something in the round robin, and if there's like a live dog that's 2-1 or over 2-1 to justify its spot to hold the value of said round robin, well, that's going to move toward the front of the line. Not saying it's going to get there, but it's going to move toward the front of the line if I'm desperate for legs, regardless of my pick. Don't be surprised if I throw it to Todorovic money line if he's still sitting around 2-1 by Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good read. I mean, I'm personally probably staying away from this fight in its entirety, but if you're going to play this fight, yeah, I mean, fucking Christ, you give me 2-1 on against. I mean, Zach Reese is not all that good. You know, the biggest problem with people, you know, in this space today, like with you know, watching it, because you got to forget, like a lot of these people came over from the McGregor era. Like he brought a lot of people over, you know, and they just look at the shiny new toy. You know, it's so many times you see like the oh, there's a new guy. He's a beast. He's a monster. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. Who was the guy? The heavyweight that everybody was like, dude, he's such a crazy Taekwondo guy. He's Despain.
Yeah.
Okay, Despain. Now I forgot who it was, but I had one of my biggest bets against him when he lost his fight. I was like, you guys are crazy. You guys see this guy in here, like you looking at him, because wait till he gets in there with somebody that pushes a pace on him. You know what I mean? So it's like so many people look at the shiny new toy, and I get it. Zach Reese is a big guy. He's got good grappling. You know, he's violent. And then you look at the other side, and you look like Todorovic. You know, but Todorovic is technical. Like he's a technical fighter. He's a technical fighter, and if he really did work on these things, like eventually that guy's going to find his spot. They've been finding their spot on him, but eventually he's going to find his spot on somebody. And if he's going to find the spot, there's no reason why he can't be against Zachary. So I'm not going near this fight, but I totally see why you would want to, sprinkle something on the dog here.
For sure. I love that you brought up Rebellas. I just ran into my guy, Todd Duffy, and he was saying similar things that you were just saying. He was trying to fight him, actually, when he got out of the UFC. He was like, because he was like, oh, man. He's like, I know. He's like, listen, I know I could get knocked out by him, but, like, dude, if I get this guy to the ground and ground and pound his ass, like, he wasn't in those AKA rooms like I've been in.
Guys like Bob
yeah,
Sapp.
that's true, bro. Yeah, exactly. Last thing on this fight before we move on, just to give you the Apex record, Todorovic 2-3 in the smaller octagon. REESE is 1-0, 2-0 if you want to count as Dana White Contender Series fights for whatever those stats are worth. Let's move on to the prelims. But this fight, I'm excited for as much as any fight on the card, even though it's a prelim. We've got ALLAN NASCIMENTO -155, JAFEL FILHO +130. Fight opened at a pick'em, by the way, so that's a public money push there. The total for this fight set at 2.5 rounds with the over -165, under +128. Mike, any initial feels on this fight?
Yeah, I actually like FILHO in this fight. Historically, when you look at these style matchups, right? When you look at two grapplers, you look at two really good strikers, and they come in and they meet each other in the cage, you got one or two things that's going to happen. One of three things. You're going to have what you're hoping for, which is an awesome grappling exchange. You're going to have two guys staring at each other in the center of the cage and strike it out, or you're just going to have an absolutely boring fight where they just don't know what they want to do. You know what I mean? So more times than not, the fights that you're expecting or hoping for doesn't happen. When we had, Derek Lewis fight in Francis, boring as hell. We thought there would be a knockout. When you have two really good grapplers, you're expecting crazy, exchanges. Doesn't happen. This is a situation that can happen too. You got two really good grapplers. You got one guy in NASCIMENTO who's more of a positional grappler. He's more, I think, of a technical grappler. He thinks before he does things. He's more position before submission. And then you get a guy in FILHO who's more of a submission before position. This guy's looking to, make things happen instead of instead of just trying to, wait for a certain window to open and jump in. He's trying to open windows. So, from that standpoint, I do favor NASCIMENTO if it comes to a controlled grappling environment. But I'm not so certain it's going to end up like that. And when you have to take that a little bit off the table with two really good grapplers and say, all right, well, now it's going to go to striking, I think FILHO is a lot better striker than NASCIMENTO. I think he's sharper. I think he's got that. He's got a longer frame. He's got more of a striker's body. He's got those long limbs. He's got nasty kicks. He understands how to use his range. He's got the body somata type of a Ricardo Ramos. He's got that, you know what I mean? He did like good spinning, techniques and stuff like that. Where NASCIMENTO is good, but he's more forward. He's trying to duck and dodge. He's doing things that you can very much easily read. Where FILHO's a little bit snappier, a little sharper, a little more tricky, and I think that's where he can kind of run away with this fight. So I like the dog in this spot.
Yeah, again, I want to get some more head-to-head action with you for entertainment, but I also got to be real. I feel the same way. Not just from a value perspective of like, hey, this is a pick'em. It's going to be a close fight. They're both good grapplers, so it's not like one of those has the edge for the fighting terrain, right? Give me the plus number. But more specifically, you got into some of those things, and I do like it. Now, he is a little lower volume. I do agree with all that with the striking for FILHO. I think he's the harder hitter, the more impactful one, which, you're not going to have the crowd noise to cut through. So kind of like that Khalil Roundtree Jacoby decision, that can kind of sway the judges over the volume, right? However, the volume can be low, which kind of worries me, which we'll talk about with another Nova and Yao fighter who we skipped in the main card. Apologies, folks. We'll get to KETLEN, VIEIRA, MACY, CHIASSON next for order's sake. But yeah, she comes from that Nova and Yao camp, which is run by Andre Pederneiras, home of Jose Aldo, right? But from Jose Aldo all the way down to even the ladies, right? Which we'll talk about, a little bit of lower volume. Like they've got skills everywhere. It's such a good camp. Underrated wrestling and wall work, despite jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai being the more known staples from the highlight reels to the regional stereotypes, right? Very good camp. Not trying to disrespect, but a lower pace camp though. And it doesn't worry me as much in this fight because I too actually do like the dog side. ALLAN NASCIMENTO, he actually has some Muay Thai chops and experience. Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu actually are his main disciplines. They're both black belts, but FILHO is a Pan American champ, a little more specialty, and I also like his wrestling style a little better. A lot of the fighters, I feel like after Charles Oliveira fought Islam Makhachev, everyone else in Shootbox Diego Lima, which is Alan Nascimento's camp, like they all had to get better wrestling, because now you all see them like, you know, imitating Makhachev from the body lock. Except, you know, Nascimento, despite his length, he's not that like of a powerhouse. He's more of like, I'm gonna shuck to the side and, you know, try to, like, you know, take your back that way, or drag you down, which is effective and all that. But again, to a fellow jiu-jitsu guy who I think might have better wrestling and might have a better wrestling process, you know, FILHO's a jiu-jitsu guy, but he'll do like the Khabib, you know, the Dagestani lockdowns, locking down, isolating a leg, reaching back and getting that cross wrist control, the air quote Dagestani handcuff position right along the fence. Like, he'll actually do that stuff. And he's got a really solid control position. So I think that Nascimento, who is 2-0 in the UFC Apex, by the way, whereas FILHO is 1-0, could be 2-0 if you count his Dana White Contender Series, whereas Nascimento could actually be 2-1. Nascimento will be attacking more, right, with more submissions to strikes. However, when it comes to more impactful and maybe even the better process, we'll have to see. That could be FILHO here. And if you're going to give me a plus number, and I don't expect it to climb much, but if it does continue to go up, you know, around plus 130 area, I may end up taking a bite out of this as one of my straight plays for the card. This is one I'm zeroing in on, Mike.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think, like I said, I mean, I look at plus 130. Is it a dog shot? Sure it is, but it's still a kind of, you know, the line is still fairly close on a fairly close fight. I don't see a ton of value either way, but if I gun to head, I'll take a shot on VIEIRA.
Absolutely. So main card makeup spot, even though it kind of did a flip, it's still small, it's still practically pick 'em, right? We've got Maycee CHIASSON, who is now the favorite, minus 118, open at plus 100, not too far of a travel, with KETLEN VIEIRA, minus 102, total set for 2.5 rounds, as you'd expect, I guess, with minus 350, a little high, to be honest, even for a women's fight. We'll see what you think, Mike. Under 2.5 rounds, plus 254. Any thoughts on the money lines, overs, the fight itself?
I was actually surprised when I saw Maycee a dog when the line opened, to be honest with you. And reason being is I was always kind of high on her. Like, I always liked her. She reminded me of a female version of Tim Means. You know, nasty elbows. You know, she will try to cut you open with them. And every time she fought, I was like, this is Tim Means as a woman. Like, if Tim Means was female MMA, this would be who Tim Means is. And then she kind of, you know, she kind of had her mental episodes a little bit where she kind of didn't know what, you know, which end was up, and her head wasn't in the game. And I'm like, well, here we go. He's a great prospect with great attributes, long limbs, good striking, violent nature, and the mental, you know, aspect of it's going to take her out of this. She seemed to be a little bit reborn a little bit. In the last couple of fights, she's been showing a little bit more thirst and hunger. And I like that out of her because, like I said, this is a girl who fights violent. She fights, you know, the best way I can say, she's got that Tim Means style with her. And when you look at KETLEN VIEIRA, as tough as she is, and she's been through it. I mean, Kayla Harrison, Penny Kanzad, Pennington, Holm, Tate, she's fought a much better level of competition. But I feel like the thing with KETLEN is she stays in one gear. And I feel like every time I watch her fight, it's like she's right there. Like, I'm like, you can get this round, but she stays in that one gear. She never pops it into another gear. She kind of fights to whatever pace you're fighting at. And I don't think you want to do that with Maycee, because if you're going in the same pace and you're going damage for damage, Maycee's the one who's going to land those shots that optically look more appealing. Like, wow, look at that elbow. She's got that longer frame that the optics show a little bit better. Now, if KETLEN pushes forward and makes this a really tough mudslinging fight, you know, it slows things down. That's great. But I don't know. There's something about Maycee right now. I think she's kind of clocked in. I think she has momentum in her favor. And I think she has more to shoot for right now. We got to remember, when you're coming off a loss and you're fighting Kayla Harrison and you lose that fight, you know, like, where do you go from there? Like, you're kind of like, you're kind of in limbo at that point. Like, you don't know, you know, when is your next opportunity, if there's another opportunity. Maycee right now, she's kind of, you know, on a 2-fight win streak. This fight does a lot for her, and she's got everywhere to go but up. There's just more of a hunger zone on her side right now. I just like her momentum. I like what she's showing. I like where her head's at. I like her here pretty convincingly, probably by decision.
So yeah, I came to the same conclusion as you, but I came from a different place, which I'd argue kind of validates the analysis. We're not coming from like a, a biased place here, either of us, because I wasn't too high on Maycee. I wasn't sure where she was. Is she like, not a man without a country? Like, was she a size bully without a country? Can she even make the weight when she does? There's still some vulnerabilities to the body that I would be cautious about against any kind of body worker. Luckily for her, Ketlen Vieira does not work the body. She's more of a head and low kick person, headhunter and low kicker. Even though there are plenty of Nova and Yao fighters like Aldo who are great body workers, but yeah, she's got more of that head hunt, neutralize. She'll throw some good elbows in the clinch. She'll throw the occasional good knee to the body in the clinch, but Maycee is outworking anybody 3 or 4 to 1 on knees in the clinch, not just with her stature, but her style and aggressiveness. And to Mike's point, I really think she's clicking on all cylinders. Like, I was watching her recent fights ahead of the podcast, and I'm like, man, she really looks like she's finally like, it sounds trite, but I don't know how else to explain it, Mike. It really looks like she's finally putting all the pieces together. I'm a big Safe Saeed guy, a big fan of that coach. So, not that I don't pick against his fighters. I pick against his fighters all the time, but I don't like to. But that being said, I genuinely do like Maycee here. I genuinely do like the line movement, whether it's the contrarian or the FOMO in you. Sometimes we're just like, oh, I missed the plus money. I don't want to buy chalk or whatever it is. And I am a plus money, plus money slut over here. You know what I'm saying? I love me the plus money. That being said, I also, when it comes to playing short favorites, a lot of people like it. I'd say I really like the short favorites when it is a move from a dog, because even though I'm one who always says don't be afraid to fade the market, I love fading the market. However, when I am in line with the market on those slight moves to a slight favorite, those seem to hit at a pretty decent percentage. So Maycee CHIASSON is a fighter I'm going to look to play. However, I might disagree, or maybe can get you on the same page, because I was going to pitch a potential plus money for our Triple C, our consensus cash cow, Mike, because I think she can get it done inside the distance, and I feel like, not that she can't win a decision, because we saw.
Wait, who get it done inside the distance?
Maycee. I think Maycee
Oh, okay,
does.
okay. All right.
This fight reminds me of, this is a really random reference, but
She's
reminds
tough,
me of
though, bro. Ketlen Vieira's tough.
Nikita Krylov versus Francimar Barros. Francimar Barros is another, I believe he was a Nova and Yao guy. He fought from middleweight up to heavyweight. For those of you who don't know him, don't bother, because literally, Mike, I don't know if you have like a least favorite. I've been doing this for a decade. Francimar Barros is by far the worst fighter I've had to do tape study for. It is so, I just want my life back. He doesn't.
What about Anthony Hamilton?
Oh yeah, he just stares, and then at the end, it's the worst, because he'll put on the most boring fight, and at the end, he'll do like a pose like he's in the Ginyu Force in Dragon Ball Z. I'm like, what did you do, bro? Relax. That being said, even though he was a good neutralizer, a proven fighter, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt from Nova and Yao as well, like Ketlen Vieira, Krylov, even as raw and wild as he especially was back then, I was like, not only do I think he can win, I think he can finish him. Not only do I think he can finish him, but I think he can submit the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, which he went ahead and did, because it was more of a pacing archetype. He just overwhelms. Neutralizers just hate that overwhelming pace. We saw it with Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad, right? That was just like toxic to him. Even if Bilal is not the most craziest, intimidating, not trying to take away from Bilal, but he was an underdog in that fight. Sometimes you see that archetype. Now, Bilal didn't get the finish, and maybe Maycee doesn't get the finish here. However, man, even though Vieira is really tough, and I expected her to go to decision when everybody was like, oh, she's going to get finished by Harrison, I called the decision. So I'm in no way trying to write Ketlen off here, but I feel like in the small cage, the kind of fight she's going to fight, the elbows, like she gets cut up with. She did a good job with the elbows to Harrison, but we saw in the Yana Kunitskaya, now Yana Santos, right? Was Yana Kunitskaya when they fought, who's a much worse fighter, had much less opportunities, much less even size than Maycee's going to have, was able to really, overwhelm her and even steal rounds in certain spots, right? So I like Maycee money line in case she doesn't, but I was going to pitch that plus 475 is juicy as hell. We wouldn't need that big of that unsafe of chalk anchors on either side of it. Just saying, not saying I need it there, but it's we're coming close to the end of the show, so I want to throw some of these feelers out there, Mike.
All right, yeah, well, we could definitely talk about. I was thinking more along the line Maycee CHIASSON as a part of. I was going to make her actually my one of my pieces to keep it at -120. But we'll talk about it. Let's go to the next.
That's true too. You know what? You know what? That might be better. We'll talk about it. Either way,
Yeah.
let's keep her on the table. Let's go to the next fight here. Back down to the prelims for you guys. We got my guy Trevin Giles, Giles, +145 as your underdog. Andreas Gustafsson, -175. The total is 2.5 rounds with the over 2.5. +115 because they're predicting violence on paper with the under 2.5 rounds at -145. You got anything on this fight, Mike?
I'll be honest with you. I'm going to keep this one short too, but this fight scares me a little bit for Gustafsson. This is a guy who I've watched his film and people are making a lot of stink about it. I just don't see it. I see a guy who is, he's got that Viking way about him. He's got that nasty tattoo on his back. He's brutal. He's in the clinch. He's, nasty knees, big elbows. I get all that. It's all great and fine. But who is he doing it against? Who's he doing it against? When you look at this as well, he's also older than Giles. Like, if he was such a crazy prospect and he was so on the radar, don't you think he'd be in the UFC already? You know what I mean? So it's like, I get it. I get what people are fantasizing about here. They got this guy who seems like he's a brute. You know what I mean? Almost like Semi the Jedi 4.0. You really, but I look at him and there's nothing technical about him. Like he doesn't fight well from the outside. He loads up on all his shots. He's got no technique when it comes to throwing jabs down the center line. He's just a really high octane guy with good durability. I watched film on one fight where the guy was, they were both giving it to each other. What a fight. And I was very impressed with his durability, very impressed with his gas tank, and very impressed with some of his shot selections inside the clinch. But once it got outside, you really had to show some technique and stuff, he just looked lost. And as bad as Trevin Giles' chin is, and as bad as he is in the state of his career that he's in, Trevin Giles can box his ass off. Trevin Giles can strike. Trevin Giles has some good technique behind him. His problem is he can't keep his chin clean. If he keeps his chin clean in this fight, he can absolutely win this fight. Absolutely. But the question is, he's got to keep his chin clean because he's the better fighter. If you watch film on both of these guys, Trevin Giles is the better fighter. He just doesn't put it together all the time. Sometimes he goes in there, he doesn't even look like he wants to be in there. But when Trevin Giles is clicking on all cylinders, he's actually a pretty good, tough kid. So I wouldn't go near this with Gustafsson. I wouldn't put him in parlays. I really wouldn't. I would stay away from this because I do see an open path for Giles to steal this one.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short too, and you especially because you nailed it perfectly. This one I still want to look into a little bit more. It's been hard to find some recent fights lately. They're doing this weird transition. I'm sure you've noticed everyone's been kind of dealing with it. That being said, regardless of which side you end up on, and I'm probably both officially as well as like for my Tout Master picks, which is just a fun little contest that a lot of the Dogger Pass audience, I know you guys are in that pool as well. I'm way down there, so don't worry about me. But you get more points for picking the dog. But I actually would pick the dog here. Now I wouldn't play him like I'm talking about wanting to target other dogs like JAFEL FILHO on the card, right? Or other dogs turn favorites like MACY CHIASSON. But I'm going to go with the veteran spot. It feels like it could be a real buy low spot when you got a much more proven veteran who is 3 losses in a row, but he has moments in almost all his losses. Giles does, and I just want to see more from Gustafsson. So, regardless of the pick, this is not one you should be rushing to the betting window on. I think we both agree there.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm not going near this one. I'm not going to do it because I don't trust his chin, and I don't think that Gustafsson's that good. So for me, it's just to stay away.
All right. I'm going to squeeze this one in here in the prelims. We got Bolaji Oki, -175, Markel Medeiros, +145. I don't have total odds on hand, but while I pull those up, Mike, I'm going to quick back to surf for you as we're speed running through the last of these prelims. You got anything on this fight, man?
I honestly, this one to me, it's the same thing. I'm looking at it from a perspective of, just two really good strikers. You know what I mean? One thing about Oki is, will he go for takedowns and stuff like that? Yeah, sure. But he's more of he's got power. He's got like that LEDOVIT Klein frame. He's like thick. He's, that you got to worry about though. A lot of people think that it looks cool when they come into the cage and are all bricked up like that, but you got to worry about that because the bigger your muscles are, the more oxygen you need, the more lactic acid buildup. There's a lot that goes involved. Like being bigger sometimes is not better. A lot of times it's not better. Guys like Muhammad Ali were the greatest fighters in the world. Why? They had smooth bodies. They didn't have that lactic acid buildup. So sometimes it's not the better. But when I look at this fight and I just look at both the way these guys match up, like Medeiros can beat you in more ways than Oki can, in my opinion. But I just feel like Oki's body work, Oki's optics, as far as, you know, the harder punches, pushing forward. When you're hurt, he knows how to go in there and hunt and kill, and he will. Like, if he sees you back up on your back foot, if he sees you're hurt, he's going to go in. He's going to look for a liver shot. He's going to tie his punches together really well. And I think that's where he kind of wins this fight. So I'm going Oki here, but I don't really have like a hard stand.
Again, I wish I had more pushback for you on this one, but that's kind of, that's kind of what stands out to me too. And I'll describe it not so much in a different way, because I think we're hitting on the same points. But I said this about a previous fight where the FILHO fight, where we were both on the same side of that one as well. But we both basically felt that the power, and not even just the power, because it's not all necessarily power and size, right? But the descriptor of eye-catching, right? The more eye-catching moments. That can encapsulate a lot of different things, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, Mike. Sometimes a fighter can have more of an eye-catching style. Now, power and pop is certainly part of that persuasive equation, right? Certainly. However, not the whole thing. And when I look at Oki's style, I do feel like whether he's blowing a guy out or in a close fight, he does have the more eye-catching style, whereas Medeiros, you see the potential clearly, and he's still working things out as he should be. He's still a bit, raw in areas, as he should be as well. But again, I'm not against a certain level of competition. It's definitely, it becomes more apparent. But against another guy who's going to be very athletic, it's going to neutralize, if not have that advantage, depending. We got to see how the fight plays out. But all things being equal, I do think Oki has more of an eye-catching style. Now, maybe I dig into the tape between here and Friday, and I find that Leonardo DiCaprio, shit moment. And, by the way, folks, I do post all my picks and plays the night before. I post them on my Substack, which is free at Dan Tom MMA, or the same address at Dan Tom MMA on the artist formerly known as Twitter. And that's where I post my fun little picks and plays threads with usually some kind of a film GIF of some sort. So keep an eye out for that, but I am leaning toward Oki here. All right. Next fight. All right. This one's interesting, man. We got Jordan Levitt minus 190, comeback on Kurt Holobaugh plus 160, total set at 2.5 rounds with the over 2.5 minus 170, under 2.5 rounds plus 132. What do you got on this one, Mike?
Yeah, man, when I first saw this, I was like, oh my God, dude, this is Kurt Holobaugh all day. But then after, you do your research, you do your due diligence, you go on.
Yes.
And by all stretch of the means, like, I can't stand picking Jordan Levitt. I like him. I think he's a character. I think he's funny. I think he's good for the sport. He brings a different audience, but it's just so hard for me to take him serious. I don't know why. And he's nasty. Like, he is nasty on the ground. He will put you in positions that, and you're not expecting. When you're talking about pulling the wool over sheep's eyes, he's the guy to do it. Like, he just doesn't look like much. It looks like if you see him in the library or something, you'll be like, I'll throw this fucking kid all across the place. And then he comes in, he's got your neck. So when I look at Holobaugh, I just look at a guy who's like super, super tough. The guy's a dog. He's there to fight. He's got, a good striking. He's a decent grappler, but he's got one hole in his game that is just, it bothers me. And he can't stop a fucking takedown worth his life. You could take him down and take him down and take him down. And you don't need great entries. You don't need these double blasts and these single legs and these high crotches. You just need to lock your body on him and somehow get him to the ground. And if Jordan Levitt gets him to the ground, he's not getting up. Like, I'm not saying that Jordan Levitt's going to submit him, but chances are the round's going to end there, because one thing about Jordan Levitt, that kid is very intelligent. He's got a very high IQ. He's got a very high grappling IQ, and he knows position. He knows weight distribution. He knows how to center and lock down his hips. It's one thing I noticed about him. Sure, are his hands terrible? They're horrible. He doesn't know how to box. But when it comes to his grappling, he knows his grappling P's and Q's. And I just think that, Holobaugh can be winning the first couple minutes of a round in this fight, and then all of a sudden until he's not, So I think that's what's going to kill him in this fight, and I think Jordan Levitt probably is going to win, maybe a decision.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because you said it, and there's those fights, right, where you're like, what's this with the line, and then you look into it, you're like, oh, okay, I get it, right, and that's absolutely the case. And I'm a big, Jordan Levitt defender. Obviously, I'm biased here. He trained at Syndicate. I trained at Extreme Couture. However, we share the same catch wrestling coach, Neil Melanson, who's no longer in Vegas anymore. So I don't know how much he's working with him. But Neil's, giant dude, like, 6'5", 270 pounds, is really rough catch wrestling, violent style, tough, old school, and even he was just like, yeah, don't judge. To your point, Mike, he's like, yeah, man, don't get it twisted with Jordan. He's filthy. Oh, he's filthy on the mat, you know. And you know, I know he had a really lackluster performance. I don't know if it was his last one or his Paddy Pimblett fight, but it might even been his last fight against Chase Hooper. I think he his wife was giving birth and he found out like right before they walked out. So like dude's head wasn't even probably in the fight, right? I didn't go back to watch whatever grappling match that he lost on points to whoever that was. I'm not sure how relevant that will be here. But yeah, man, and that small cage is going to encourage it. It's like, okay, I get why he's the favorite. That being said, I don't think he should be that big of a favorite. And even if I do pick Levitt, which I'm not saying I will, I'm actually kind of reluctantly leaning toward HOLOBAUGH. I feel like this is dog or pass, and perhaps it's out of principle because I actually took a shot. I both picked HOLOBAUGH and played him in his last fight opposite Alexander Hernandez. And no disrespect to Hernandez, right? And no disrespect to Levitt, but at the same time, if I'm picking HOLOBAUGH over Alexander Hernandez, how am I not going to pick him against Jordan Levitt, right? And if I framed it and phrased it that way, who could blame me for that logic, right? That being said, I am very hesitant on this fight. I've got biases going both ways. From a betting perspective, regardless of what, you know, my dumbass picks, it's dog or pass. It's you know, HOLOBAUGH. And if you're going to get HOLOBAUGH, if the number keeps growing, maybe I throw, you know, even if I pick Levitt, you know, if he were to, I don't think he's going to get to 2-1, but like, let's say HOLOBAUGH were to get like even stupider higher, then I would feel like out of principle, I'd have to have some action, even if it was just minimal round robin exposure. But yeah, this is a confusing fight for me, man. It's really tricky. And all I can do is repeat the title of our podcast for this one. I think it applies mainly the pass part, probably.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Lastly, but not leastly, we have Rayan dos Santos minus 275 with the comeback on Alice Ardalian, or as I like to say, Alderaan, for being a Star Wars nerd. She's looking for love in Alderaan places, and she's a 225 plus 225 underdog. The total 2.5 rounds, over 2.5, minus 450, under 2.5 rounds. Plus 313 are the odds makers in public all the wrong on this one, or are they all the right?
I mean, I don't think you can lay that line on two women who no one's ever won in the UFC. I mean, they're both
Yes.
0-5 together. I mean, how does anybody go in from a DraftKings perspective or a wagering perspective and be like, oh yeah, I'm tying her into a parlay, you know? So it's like, listen, should dos Santos win this fight? Yeah, I look at the way I looked at this fight, because I don't think they're both good. I think dos Santos is better, but you also got to look at their motivation. I was shocked to see that Ardalian has almost 1 million followers on social media. So you got to wonder, like, where is her motivation? Like, is she really in the gym training? Does she really have her eye on the prize? Does she really, even though that she's not that good, you have to have a certain belief system in yourself as a fighter. Does she really want to go up the hill, or not? Or she just doesn't care because she's dealing with social media and all this other stuff? Where dos Santos, like, whether she's good or bad, whether she's, you know, going anywhere or not, she's got her she's a little bit more focused, I think, on the actual fight game. And I do think she's a little bit better. So I'm going to go her, but I can totally see this fight going to the cards and being like real, like, you know, scary and sneaky.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I'm not even going to plant a flag too hard on a favorite at all. So I'm almost afraid to say this, but this is one where it's like, I'm picking the favorite. I'm not playing it. But that being said, I know there's been a lot of times where, you know, you look at it as a cop out. I'm just being honest, from a betting perspective, doesn't necessarily match. You know, picks, analysis, and bets are three different things. I always say people don't understand that, but picks, analysis, and bets are three different things. They don't always line up, right? I was like, oh, I'm going to pick Alistair Overeem to beat Stipe Miocic because Stipe can get hit with southpaw body kicks. He can get hit with counter crosses, and his head outside single poses him to guillotines. Well, guess what? Alistair crippled him to the liver. He dropped him with the left cross, almost guillotined him, but it didn't matter. He didn't win. The analysis was devoid of the result, and it was definitely devoid of whatever I bet. So those are three different things here. That being said, I don't even have the sympathy for the underdog where, like, maybe I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna pick the favorite, but I'm gonna, you know, put the female dog in tout master, which is usually my approach. I guess that's my variation of the CF dot model without actually committing to some big underdog. Shout out to Pat Mayo and that model. And again, it's not like you're getting the big sexy number to, you know, to fade either of them. And when I look at their styles on the basic eye test, I like Rayan dos Santos' style a little more. I think she will perhaps catch the eyes a little more with her style. And even though they're both winless, you know, you go look at there's a lot of can crushing on the regionals, but she's got a win over Jill DeCourcy, who is a fighter that I respect. It's a well-respected regional name on there before she got to the UFC. And these were splits, even though they were to, names like Pooja Tutumar. Losing a split to the Pooj, not a great look. That being said, I'm going to pick Dos Santos, and don't expect me to have any exposure in this fight, though.
No, not at all. I ain't going to have any exposure to this. All right. So we go to our thing. So I was thinking about it. Maybe we should to keep it like non-argumentative, like so we don't have to worry about agreeing. We both pick a favorite and both pick a dog and lock in a 4.
Okay. All right. Let's do that. Let's
you know what I mean? This way we don't have to sit here and go back and forth and bore everyone to fucking tears while we wait and talk, and you know what I mean?
All right, let's do that. Yeah,
I got mine already.
I'll go to you first. Give me your favorite, then I'll give you a favorite, then you give me your dog, and then I'll give you a dog.
All right. Well, first I got to ask you this. I have to ask you: are you going to use your Maycee prop? Because if so, I'm not going to put Maycee as a straight.
No, I'm going to play it for myself, but for the sake
I'm
of the
saying
show, put into this. I would only use it if you didn't use it, but it sounds like you're going to use it, and I'm open to your argument.
I want to use Blanchfield, to be honest with you, but I want to keep I want to make it a really juicy parlay. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to have I'm trying to make it. So I'm going to go Maycee CHIASSON. I'm going to go Billy Ray Goff by KO, and 2 legs in will be plus 313 just for those 2 legs.
Those are great. That's just for that. Those 2 legs alone. It's like, what if we see, I would my sandwich for people, and people, you can play this however you want. So if I were to sandwich that, I would sandwich that with GAMROT, but I'm going to bring my own dog in. GAMROT's going to be my favorite. I'm just going to say the money line.
You want him to be your money line guy?
I do. Yeah.
Right,
I'm not going to same game parlay. I'm not going to get cute with the decision prop because again, I do believe that he's got finishing equity here on the ground.
We're up to 567.
Okay. So now an underdog line. Let's see.
It could be a prop.
Yeah, it could be a prop. Yeah, for sure. Blanchfield by decision, which is what I wouldn't want, and it's minus 115. So that's off it. Nope. We already got a co-main event exposure. That's off it.
Blanchfield by sub.
Yeah.
It's your pick. It's your pick, dude. It's your pick.
That would be more for like a round robin flyer for me, to be honest. You know, she does have the equity to do that. Let's go. Was there no, I think the unders that looked good to me at plus money. I think we already have exposure on those fights, so that wouldn't work. We'll go down to Jason. Philo. Why don't we just put Philo money line? Plus money.
Okay, Philo. All right, so Philo money line. So now that we got a plus 1395.
Do we keep that? Right. That's a good enough number, I think. But I mean, over 10 to 1, I think is good. I think over 10 to 1 is good. We don't got to get greedy with Philo by decision here, right?
No, that's a fun number, guys. So here it is, guys. We got Maycee CHIASSON straight, Billy Ray Goff by KO, GAMROT straight, FILHO straight, and you're cashing out plus 1395. So that'll be our swinger. Fucking, that sounds sexual.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna find a house where I can get my best odds on that, and you guys will see that represented in my plays because this is fun. This is just something fun for us to do and follow along with on the show. As far as my round robins, what I'm looking at goes, if I do incorporate the main, it'd have to be like maybe a Blanchfield by sub. GAMROT and KLEIN, maybe again an under, could be a potential round robin leg. I'm getting 2 to 1 for that. What was the Blanchfield by sub prop? You're getting, in the neighborhood of 4 to 1, depending on where you shop for that. As I'm holding up my fingers here, JACOBY, again, it could be probably by inside the distance, but that's only plus 150. So I don't know if I want to really touch that. If I'm going to touch something in that plus 150 range, I'm going to go with probably Goff by KO, because that's more of a 2 true outcome type fight. So we'll put that on there in case it's like a 4-legger. ZACHARY, TODOROVIC, again, maybe TODOROVIC money line, possibly. I'd have to be really desperate to have that on there, by the way, folks, but I do want to put that on the table. And it wouldn't overdo. Yeah, Chase on inside the distance plus 475. You bet your A, I'm going to have that on there. And then maybe in that same region, Philo plus 450, because I don't think Nascimento is tough to finish, and two jiu-jitsu guys that can neutralize each other, and it's the better wrestler, higher impact strikes that we talked about that wins the day, and that's a big almost 5x jump on his money line. That's already plus money for FILHO there. So yeah, all right. We'll do a quick recap from top to bottom of what we liked, and then we'll get out of here. Sounds good? Just as far as the picks go. So Blanchfield versus Barber, we both liked Blanchfield. We're just, kind of tentative on how, if to attack that from a betting perspective. We both like GAMROT, correct, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
We both like GOFF, but we're also like not sold on that wide of a line, but yeah, we both like GOFF. That KO prop, obviously, we really like. That's going to be part of our Triple C consensus cash cow. We both like JACOBY. You're not as bullish on him as I am, granted. I will note that, right, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
We both like MACY here. I'm a little more bullish on the finish, but
no, I'm not on MACY.
No, KETLEN?
No. Yeah. I thought you were saying Maycee Barber. My fault, dude. I'm fucking shot.
Oh, yeah. You're scared me. Yeah, Maycee CHIASSON. Sorry, two Macy's. Two Macy's here. I'm probably a little more bullish on the finish, but either way, as long as she wins by any means necessary, that Triple C leg hits. We both feel weird with this. We're both like very semi-reluctantly, I think, leading toward REESE, but I mean that's like a dog or pass. Who the F knows? We both like FILHO as a dog. He's in our Triple C, and I'm going to be playing him straight up for what that's worth, more than likely. We both have mixed feelings on Kurt HOLOBAUGH and LEDOVIT. So we're mixed there, and I'm still kind of semi-undecided. And do we both like? I don't know how much we like rushing to the betting window, but we are picking Giles for his experience, right? We both kind of
for picking reasons. Yes. Yeah, I'm just going to take Giles.
Yeah, for picking reasons, not too bullish. And again, BOLAJI Oki versus Michael Aswell. Did we get another change recently? Because I just refreshed the page here, and now Michael Aswell is in for BOLAJI Oki. Either way, I guess our Oki pick is probably going to stay the same. Sorry, folks. You never know with these cards. And we're both speaking on the semi-reluctant path. We're both semi-reluctantly taking that favorite down there with Rayan dos Santos over Alice Alderon places. Sound good?
Yeah, I think we're pretty much on target. Yeah, I just looked at that now too. That's fucking weird. Michael as well. Huh. Also, guys, at MadLab MMA, my Twitter, go follow me. I do all the rounds. I boxing and MMA. I'm in there scoring. If you want to check out all my content, boxing MMA, go to the madlabmma.com. It's one flat fee. You get everything. You get the Fight Brain. You get all our DraftKings stuff. Discord, we do giveaways, awesome community in there. And then go over to my boxing YouTube if you're into boxing, you want to learn a little bit about boxing. We're doing a boxing YouTube page, MadLab Boxing, which is just basically covering all the sweet science. So I hope you guys will come by and check us out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Please give Mike a follow. I was just listening to his boxing podcast. Very informative. I love listening to other people who actually follow and know the sport because I don't have time to follow boxing. So great resource there from Mike. Please follow all the shows. A lot of great shows there on the Mayo Media Network. As far as me, you can find me at Dan Tom MMA on all social platforms. Instagram is mainly photos of my dog. Well, Jared, by the way, let me get you some better pictures of my dog. We'll get on there. I think some people were like, "Who's these dogs?" Say all the mean things you want about me, but go easy on my dogs. They're sweethearts. We'll get some better photos. We had the droopy brownie on. She looks sad all the time. Maybe we'll get Benjamin back on, my main guy, my pit bull boxer. So shout out to all you dog lovers out there. Hopefully you dog or pass lovers are still dog or pass lovers. We kept this show a bit tighter. Again, I'm going to try to be better about getting into the comments and getting more of the feedback, especially the constructive and positive feedback is appreciated, folks. And going to try to get back to you guys more and try to build that rapport. You guys deserve it. And we want to make you guys happy too, man. We're here to have fun, and we're here to have fun with you. So good luck on your picks and plays. We'll see you next week, and always protect your neck.